2 years, which normally takes in Nepal 3 to 4 years. We said in next 10 years, the capacity that we can, the hydropower potential that we can exploit is 4,000 megawatt, 5,000 megawatt, or even if you go through the manifesto, some of the political parties, it says 10,000 megawatt, even in 20 years, it is 25,000 megawatt, something like that. And if you ask me, if there is some basic and fundamental process inbuilt and rectified and modified, and from my experience, I can say that in the next 10 years, it can be even say 20,000 megawatt. But there are some small things and very small things that are to be taken care of and done, not big things. Let us forget about industry, let us forget about the funding, let us forget about this, that, and blah blah. Small things are to be done, but that is not being done. I don't know the reason. Let me explain let me cite some examples. The Act. When we very often talk to the government authorities in the past, and then we were told that after the Constituent Assembly, when the new government is formed, the Electricity Act will be tabled in the Parliament, and then a normal course will follow for its ratification, discussion, and things like that. But 3 months has already passed, but we have not been able to table that particular act. Fine, I mean, act is something that if we are not happy with that, that can be amended several times after ratification and after passing the bills as well. Say after 5 years, after 10 years. And that is done everywhere in the world. It is not like that. You get the absolute fine, perfect act, and then take it to the Parliament. But the building act and the regulatory process itself is something very evolutionary, and that can happen. That is an ongoing process. But fine. I mean, let's forget about the approval by the Parliament. We have not been able to table it to the Parliament in next 3 months, which, in my view, should not take more than one hour or 1 day. Since the Act is draft is already there in place. It was last table, almost 6 years back.
Analysts talked about how to do it. But I have one question to the IFC and the World Bank representatives who's dealing with the performance standards and the protocol. I mean, now we also talked that Bhutan is a good model. Can you test your standards in the Bhutanese project? Is it sustainable from your standards? If not, if yes, then we should follow. If not, then maybe it's time for you to change the standard and the protocol in the case of Nepal, if we think Bhutan is a good model. India could be.
Thank you, Divasi. I would like to drinks around. Let me just summarize a few of the things that has happened today. We've had, in terms of presentation, in terms of issues regarding hydropower, new challenges, etc., which no party we have not looked at in details. Environment more enabling so that it would be useful for the investors to come. We've also heard from donors in terms of how they look at it as far as hydropower development is concerned, in terms of short-term, medium-term, and long-term, as well as what the investment needs to happen. We've also heard from a panelist from various different interest groups and various different institutions to give us views in terms of both hydropower development as well as the sustainability protocol. I'd just like to take on the last, last panel, the secretary, who succinctly presented some of the issues in terms of hydropower development and some of the issues in terms of sustainability. As he said, perhaps we need to look at the politics of water and energy nexus. We also need to make sure that we have a framework agreement with India, which basically most of the investors is looking at. As Khargiji also said, if there is none, nobody will come here for investment. Quite importantly, that the issues we have seen at this point of time is the disputes regarding the land acquisition and stoppage of the construction of projects like transmission line. And he succinctly said this idea of property right needs to be looked around and looked at, reviewed, so that this issue is also partly the sustainability issue in terms of community that Deliji has brought in about their involvement and their grievances needs to be addressed, which is basically a social sustainability issue that we are looking at. As is suggested, one core issue that we always go back and talk about is a legal regime, which is basically Act, both Electricity Act and Regulatory Commission Act, which you also suggested that this needs to be there. We had a policy from 2001, but has not had an act, and I understand last Constitution CA member was about to finalize that act, but somehow it didn't come out. But this time, we would be very hopeful that they will push the act, and of course, we'll have to work with the legislator, not only the government, but legislator, to make sure that this act is passed, both acts. And also, the important issue that we also have a commissioner here, but we haven't asked him to say a few words, but on his behalf, I will just say that the Secretary also suggested that we need to look at a tariff, which needs to be cost recovery, and this needs to be looked at very in details, and we had a long conversation with the Electricity Tariff Commission also, their capacities and how they are looking at it. At this point of time, it's basically helping the NEA to have recover the cost only, but we need to go beyond that, which is what the Secretary has presented. Finally, the government's confidence is much more required, and I suppose the idea of PTA is where we need to sign with some of the investor at least, so that this provides the confidence and investment, as already suggested from the donor side, that donors and others, that if we want to go from within 5 to 10 years, we want to go from being 2,000 megawatts to 10,000 megawatts, the investment climate needs to be good and investment needs to come, and with that, we've also seen this PTA needs to come. And final one, which the ADB as well as others have suggested, which Secretary also presented, is about this market. You know, we are looking at power trading company, which will come, and we are basically looking at the market not only within, but in the regional area. And if that happens, perhaps our investment will grow. In terms of sustainability, it needs to be looked at, as suggested. There are mixed feelings in terms of how we take this protocol in terms of sustainability, because we do have some kind of a fear, looks like, that's my assumption, that if we go on only doing the assessment, we may not be able to go ahead and do what we would want to do. That's what subsequently presented, which everybody seems to have. But it's also true that we need to make sure our future investment is sustainable, and we need to make sure that this assessment tool needs to be localized, as Kharge came back to it, that it needs to be understood, it needs to be interpreted correctly in our culture, as well as the issues that needs to be addressed, so that our investment in hydropower is sustainable. Thank you very much. It was very good evening, the afternoon discussion. Now I'd like to request Cameron to close it down, and thank you.
I won't be long. I think it was a really interesting closing session. We got a real divergence and differences of views that came out, but that will hopefully aid us carrying this forward into the next workshop as we work together with the NHA. I'd like to thank the moderator as well, Mr. Mohan Manandar. Thank you very much for a very capable job managing herding cats. It's often not facilitating. And my final thanks for today, I'd like to extend to Megan Banu and the team at the Police Hydropower Association. Without the hard work that the two of you and your team put into organising this event, it wouldn't have happened. And I really appreciate the assistance that we've had and the involvement. Thank you very much. Please join us for some cocktails and continue discussion, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
मुद्दा हाले क्या हो?